Nick in the house, so
yeah, I can't wait.
Let's kick it into gear. We got to get going. Is Brandon on the line?
I think he is. Let's go ahead and bring up Mr. Combs.
So,
how
Brandon,
you doing, bud?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Excellent. How about you?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. So Brandon Combs is the founder of the Firearms Policy Coalition. And I wanted to have him come on and talk about a little bit about his fantastic organization and some of the great work they're doing. So,
right.
So Brandon, tell us all why did you start Firearms Policy Coalition?
Well, look, if everybody remembers a few years ago now with Leland Yee running his SB 249 assault weapons, the first attack on the bullet button assault weapons, or what they're calling bullet button assault weapons. We wanted to take a more grassroots approach to it and bridge the gap between a lot of the grassroots groups that are out there, including folks like Mike and San Diego gun owners, and sort of bring everybody together, keep everybody pointed in the same direction, and again, take a little bit more direct grassroots approach to it. We killed that bill in 2012, and then we wanted to pair it up, strong policy work with our litigation programs with groups like Second Amendment Foundation and the Calguns Foundation and so forth. And so sort of a bridge between all of the different things that were in existence. And then it kind of went forward from there and evolved into what it is today.
And you guys have been enormously supportive of San Diego County gun owners from the very beginning. I can't thank you enough for that. Thank you guys so much. You're such a fantastic resource, and you've just been extremely supportive, and thank you so much for that.
It's our pleasure, and thanks for being a partner. Look, we can't do this except together, and there's a lot of work to do, and we all have different strengths, and if we're working together, we can get stuff done. In fact, Mike, you know that quite well. When we partnered up on a lawsuit last year and won, we got an injunction.
Yeah, that was awesome. Talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, everybody knows Prop 63, the Safety for All Act that Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom ran. That, in addition to what we were calling Gunpocalypse and Gunmageddon, a bunch of bills in the legislature, there was a law we ran into when we were in production. We were going to run some videos, some advertisements, using their own words of what they were doing, and to tell the truth, to tell the people of the state of California, here's what's really going on. We ran into a law that said, well, it's illegal. It's a misdemeanor crime for you to use free speech that came from assembly videos for political purposes. And we're like, well, that's not constitutional. How are we going to get the word out if we can't speak? So we filed a lawsuit, and in short order, won.
Exactly right. So basically the video of the assembly and state senate at work, we were not allowed to use that. Does that kind of sum that up?
Yeah, the legislature had passed a law. It was weird that just said, news companies could use, for profit for that matter, clips of assembly video and so forth in their news segments. And there was all these acceptable purposes, but the one that was unacceptable and would have been a misdemeanor crime was for example, political videos or political ads.
Right, or educating the public on what their where their representatives stand. That was not allowed. So
yeah, the core of the First Amendment was the one thing that they didn't allow and made it a crime. And so we were like, we're not okay with that. If we're going to be up against all of these bills and Prop 63, we want to be able to speak and not go to jail. So we killed the law, and then subsequent to that, permanently, the law went away when they repealed it by a bill, and then later Prop 54. So. Nice win for free speech, so we can speak out against gun control.
Fantastic. So, what are some of the things that are coming up? What are some of the major things that you're working on right now?
Well, the next couple of weeks are going to be busy for us. Actually, we've got one Ninth Circuit argument scheduled for the 16th of March in a case called Pena versus it used to be Steve Lindley, the chief of DOJ Bureau of Firearms. Now it's Martha Superner. But in any case, that is the roster challenge in that there's a second and 14th Amendment challenge to the state of California's roster and microstamping laws, which everybody knows is just a gun ban.
And we'll talk about that. Talk about the roster. Tell them just a little bit about the roster and the microstamping. I know it's a huge subject, but if you could just touch on it a little bit.
Of course. The roster basically says if you're going to try to buy a new gun, if it's not on the list, then you don't get one. Well, it's worse than that, actually, because they've changed the law over the time to say, well, you can only be on the roster if your gun meets certain standards. including now microstamping, which went into effect in 2013. So if you don't have microstamping, you can't put a new gun on the roster, which means you can't get it. Well, there are thousands of safe semi-automatic handguns that are not on the roster. One of the reasons your gun can go from a quote-unquote safe, approved gun to a unsafe handgun that's not on the roster is somebody doesn't pay an administrative fee. So if the manufacturer says, you know what, we're not going to pay another extortion fee to the state of California this year for this make and model, then the gun automatically, magically becomes unsafe and you can't buy it.
You can't sell it. You can't buy it in California, which is nuts. I remember. What about what year did that pass, Brandon? Do you remember?
Oh, this goes back into the early 2000s, actually, and it was amended. It was amended a number of times along the way, but the roster has been in existence in the statutes for a while.
Yeah.
Interesting. Joe, you had a comment.
Yeah, I mean, you used the term extortion tax, and that's basically what it is. It's like having to deal with the mafia dealing with the California DOJ. And so many guns have fallen off the roster. Like Colt Firearms, one of the biggest in America. 0 guns on the roster now because, they keep falling off. Rock Island Armory made, this brought in by ArmScore. They had this great, wonderful 1911, very affordable, around $550. Well, they changed their logo. That's all they changed on the guns. They moved it from the back of the slide to the front of the slide, and they said, well, you've made a change to that gun, so now you have to make all these other changes that we're going to require and pay a different extortion tax fee, and now that gun is off the rosters. And correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, I mean, that's at this point, the roster is now at its at its lowest level in some time, and it's sliding quite a bit. If you want to go to calgunsfoundation.org/roster, you can take a look at the history of the roster, both in the law and what's happened with the number of handguns on it. One of the interesting things that we found, we did a study last year that I don't, as far as I know, no one else has ever done, and the question was, well, not just how big is the roster, you can take a look at the list and see that, but how big is the roster really? And what we found was a significant chunk of the roster were really just aesthetic variations of other makes and models. So the roster is probably, at least 30% smaller than what it really looks like.
Wow.
That's right, because like a Glock, for example, they have to pay this extortion fee per SKU number. So a Glock 19, if they have a Glock 19 that's black, that's one on the list. If they have a Glock 19 that's desert tan, that's another gun on the list. I mean, that's how they break it down by color. Right. If they have different sights, nothing changes with the gun except for aesthetics, and that's an added fee.
Just losing for an excuse, just looking for an excuse.
A de facto gun ban. And that's
exactly what it is.
It's a de facto gun ban. Everybody said it was going to be, and the other side said, "Oh no, we're all crazy." Well, that's exactly what's happening. So, Brandon, talk about the lawsuit. What's going to happen?
Well, so I'll give you a more outrageous fact before I come right to that point, and that's when the trial court judge ruled on the case, Judge Mueller said that this didn't even affect Second Amendment rights because as long as there was one on the list, basically the court's opinion was as long as you have one available to you,
one gun,
good enough. And these are all just commercial regulations anyway, which Heller says is fine, which is, I think, wrong. But so the trial court, we think, was quite wrong. The day the trial court's order came out, we appealed, and so now it's at the Ninth Circuit. So that'll be argued by Alan Gura, who Alan, everybody knows, won the Heller and McDonald cases, and many others, Ezell 2, and so forth. And so Alan's going to be at the Ninth Circuit with us on the 16th for Pena, and the following week we've got another argument at the Ninth Circuit in bank, which means full court. 11-judge panel, the chief judge, Sidney Thomas, who wrote the dissenting bad opinion in Peruta, if everybody remembers that. It'll be him plus 10 others, which we don't have the panel draw yet. But that's a really important case, too. Texeria is a case that challenges the County of Alameda's what we think is a de facto ban on gun stores. Yep. Well, if the state and federal government say, especially now after Prop 63, et cetera, everything that you do to exercise your Second Amendment rights has to be through a dealer. And then the local governments say, well, we're just going to ban dealers.
Yep.
Hey, Brandon, hold on a sec. Do we want to hold him on? We need to take a break.
We're going to have to cut him off, take a break real quick. And, we're going to have to have him back on the show again.
Yeah, we definitely got to get
Lots
you
of great
back
stuff.
on the show.
Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, we hate to do that to you, but there's just too much out there, and we got to get some more information from you. And, Brandon, thank you very, very much for taking time out of your day. And trust me, you will be back.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks,
hey,
Brandon.
We're going to take a small break. John.
Without someone doing something about it, it's not going to get any better.